Slurply derp, my G's. Thank you guys so much for all of your comments recently. I've really been a little bit overwhelmed. I haven't quite had time to reply to everyone. And I've been doing some more sound design today with phase plant and some post-processing as well. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to do a little bit breaking down a bass and then a little bit of just some simple post-processing magic to help that bass shine. And so yeah, nice dark, deep, kind of groovy loop. I won't speak so much more. Let's have a listen to what I've got here and then we'll dive into the specifics. So nice and gritty bass there. And here's the bass in isolation before the post-processing. So let's dive into the actual phase plant bass to begin with. And I've been trying to use a lot more, been trying to take advantage of the new effects plugins that I've got, namely the filter table and the shaper table, and trying to use those to create the basis of the tonality of the sound. Okay, this one is a fairly complex patch, but in the actual oscillator section it's very simple. So we basically have just two ingredients here. One of them is a saw wave with a bandpass filter on. Okay, so just a classic saw wave down here at -12. Slaps a filter on here with the bandpass, and then it's going all the way almost from 0 up to 100 on the cutoff. And yeah, my LFO, as you see down here, it's a 16/16, so 1 bar ramp down, but then I've shaped it to be a bit late and have a bit of an attack to it. Okay, so that's the main LFO, but I put some funk into the LFO rhythm by adding a second one here. Oh, my bad. Okay, so creating in an LFO sandwich. So one LFO modulating the phase of the other. So the second LFO, 8/16, and just a classic pyramid shape. I take the output from here, I track it to the phase of the first one, and I spin it around 360 degrees. And you can see the movement here gets very chaotic and skippy, and that's where the groove then comes from. Now you can always adjust the groove by changing the shapes, or just the speeds on both of them, or moving the phase positions around until you find a groove that kind of fits with the vibe of your beat. And this one, I'll just turn this part off here. Dum 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 dum. So it kind of fits nicely around my drums. And I got to that just by a bit of trial and error of the different, playing around with the different shapes and the speeds and just fine-tuning it until I got a nice rhythm going. Okay, so next I then added in a sine wave underneath, an octave lower. And let me just solo the bass again one moment here. Right, here we go. Yeah, so a fat sine wave underneath. This one doesn't have any movement on, it's just as it is. Alright, and this is going to be used to create the tone when we slam this now through all of the wonderful effects. So there's no other real modulations going on here, except for the fact that I've got a third LFO to do some subtle parameter kind of shifting on a few key knobs that will give the sound a bit more variation as it progresses. So this is just a random sort of pyramid LFO, and I did set the output on this to modulate a little bit the pitch of the saw wave here, only very, very slightly, so it slightly goes off key, but you don't really notice it so much by itself. It's just having these little movements that all stack up together creates the more natural sound. So that's just one of them, but that's all of the modulation in the oscillator section, so it's quite simple without the effects, you know. Okay, the sine wave power and a bandpass saw wave. Now let's start to get nice and experimental with the effects here. So I've gone firstly for the filter table, and I've chosen under textures and decay, and then up here is where you can really get the most out of the filter table by moving the yeah, moving moving the table around, you know. So you can see that orange line. I'm skipping through the different harmonics that is given within that table preset. I'm also modulating the cutoff a little bit on the resonance, and a little bit on the mix. So puts a nice growl in the mid-range, takes off a bit of high-end. That's how we start the proceedings. Then, this is my favourite way to add stereo, rather than using the global unison, which I still sometimes use, but the comb filter on the stereo mode. So it gives a great sort of stereo-y, flangey kind of sound, but I mix it in about 33% exactly here. And I actually like to modulate the frequency amount here. So that's actually going on my, this is my sort of slow, well it's fairly slow. This is my sort of variation LFO that's just putting some movement into the patch, you know. It's separate from the main rhythm. So I'm modulating the frequency amount of the comb filter so it kind of like drifts around a bit, you know. Makes the stereo field a bit more interesting. Right. Next, the shaper table. This is the distortion now. So similar to the filter table, I'm kind of cycling through the harmonics that we're given in the particular preset. And this is the sync smooth sine under sines. And yeah, the drive is, you know, fairly standard amount. But yeah, we're using the main LFO with all its main movement to modulate this shaper table. To really skip back and forth between the harmonics that are in the table, and then at the same time I'm having my other LFO to also change the position, so it's never the same. All right. So as you see, I really try to get variation wherever I can, especially in phase plant, because it can be easy to have the sound too static and without yeah, if you're using all these spectral sounds as well. If you don't put enough movement into them so it's unpredictable, then it can just become really bland. So you've got to make the movements unpredictable, you know. So next, a bit of white noise gets added in. This is really key because it's like it's a bit of digital white noise that the ring mod effect creates when you click on band pass noise. Okay, you just turn the rectifier and the bias all the way up, the frequency all the way up, and then you've got a nice, and the stereo as well, and then you've got a nice bit of white noise sparkle, and I modulate that in on the main LFO so it's actually following along with the pattern. So again, I'm dynamically shaping the sound in the way that I want it, so the brightness of the noise goes along with it, you know. Next is the non-linear filter. Scooping out the mid-range mud. No, it's basically it's giving the sound a bit more of a shape, because by having a bit of movement in the low mids, we get to define the bass and give it some extra expression, you know. So non-linear filter, nice and simple, a little bit of movement on both of the LFOs here. This middle LFO, which is controlling the phase of the first one, I don't put any other parameters on that. It's purely to give variation to LFO number 1 here. So I've really only got 2 movements going on. I've got the main movement and then the sort of subtle variation LFO. Okay, so next up, a little bit of convolution reverb. Give the sound a little bit of a stereo room. Then a little bit of delay as well. I've turned the duck up quite high, so you don't hear those little delay tails really until the bass kind of stops, and it keeps it quite clean. But yeah, it's a nice little finish to the sound. Then a little bit of extra saturation on everything. Here's a shaper with normal shaper with the fold back mode, really nice. Brings everything to life and does a good job in the low end. Then a little bit of a high end push on the EQ. Okay, and then finally I've done something which I haven't really tried too much before, which is doing some multiband saturation. So I'm basically at the end I'm trying to just get the most volume out of the sound, and so here I've done a final layer of high end saturation with the shaper table on the beef beef asymmetric beef, just saturating the high end only from like 1k and upwards, because the low end is already pretty maxed out at this point. So, but this now allowed me to get a bit more volume, and I can mix it in here, so I can mix it in a bit. Find a nice balance. It's sort of good around 40 or 50% there, you know, not too much, not too little. And that's the purple sun, I've called it, this preset. Finished, right? So it sounds really nice on its own, but we're going to pimp it out some more in the post-processing now. We turn it from that into this. So the first thing I wanted to do was to create some little accents in the sound. So I bounced it all out. We'll turn off the processing here for a moment. I've bounced it all out as one file, and I wanted these little parts here first. These little quick whomps, this one and this one. So these two little whomps, I wanted to exaggerate the stereo on them. So I've copied them down to a new channel here, and I've created this effect, okay? And all it is, well, I say all it is, it's actually got quite a lot of plugins on it. Okay, that's how it is natural. So I wanted to convolute it first to make it pure reverb. So it's no phasing with the original. It's a pure reverb sound, and then put a flutter effect onto it, and then a bit of tape movement, and then a bit of delay as well, right? And then EQing out the low end. So first, put 100% reverb on, and I've gone for the nice tight one, white blur 200 milliseconds from the kilohertz bundle as well. So yeah, could already work together like that, but I wanted to give more movement in. Okay, but yeah, 100% reverb, very important, so the harmonics are already different. Next, the ring mod to give a tremolo, and you just basically the normal settings on the ring mod, turn the bias all the way up and then the frequency down, and you've got a nice, you can get a nice little flutter tremolo effect going on, really easy. Bit of tape, my favourite tape plugin, the OCS 45. I've just chosen one of the presets and mixed it in on the dry wet here, just to give it a bit of a change to the sound, to make it a bit lo-fi, and then a little delay as well, just for a little extra lengthening of the tail, and then EQing out a lot of the low end up to about 400, so it doesn't have so much bass in anymore, so the bass of the main one's still more important. Okay, so it's got a nice little accent there now, so really, really nice together. Okay, so on those little notes that happens, and then on this part in the middle here, this little part where there's a stab, I wanted to exaggerate that one as well. Okay, so over here, I've created another similar kind of layer, but slightly different. And so for this one, it's basically starting off with the tape, and quite a lot on that. Makes it a bit more brighter and gives it a slightly different character and a bit more high-end focused. Then I'm mixing in some reverb here. I'm just mixing it in on this time. Mixing it in this time because the tape already changed it quite a lot, so I didn't need to go 100% on the reverb. But I'm just doing bits of delay here as well, and then taking out some low end. And then on this one, put quite some extra reverb on here with the Logic reverb, okay? And it just adds a nice simple kind of accent, yeah? Changing the harmonics a bit of reverb, and just give that a bit of life, that part to this part of the bass, you know? So that's the layering done, nice and simple, couple of little creative layers, that's it. The rest of it's kind of flat, so you've got these dynamic differences in the whole bass now, you know? And then I grouped them all up, and then I've done some post-processing on the bass. So I wanted to get a bit more volume on it, so I've done another round of multiband saturation using the multipass, and in the high end, 1K and upwards, I've used the shaper. on the asymmetric setting, which is great. And I've just mixed this in very low here, 15%, because it gets a bit too bright and tinny when I go up too high, you know. But even at 15%, I get a nice little lift in the whole sound that helps it stand out amongst the drums a bit better. And finally, a little bit of sidechaining to finish, right? Little multipass, low compression to the kick, up to about 250 Hertz. The snare, somewhere in the middle, around 400 to 1K. A little bit of separation for the kick and snare. Finally, a little bit of mid-side EQing, take out some of the stereo rumble, and then a lovely little volume boost at the end, because, you know, once we've sidechained, we've made space for the bass to be pushed a bit harder, so I'll push it harder at the end always, you know. But yeah, that's my tutorial for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a little bit of sound design with phase plant and some post-processing ideas. Hope it gives you some creative inspiration for your own projects. And yeah, that's it from me today. May I quickly remind you as well, if you guys want one-on-one coaching, I have the links down below for that. I've got loads of preset packs for phase plant, vital and current on my website. If you guys ever want mixing and mastering done, email me at info@artifactmusic.com for a price. And you get more discounts if you have like more amounts of tracks that you need work on, and also have a wonderful Discord community which is accessible via Patreon. If you join Patreon for €10 and higher, you'll get into the Discord, which is where the heart and soul of my community is, and there's some wonderful human beings in there that are far nicer and better people than I am. And if you don't want to pay that much, but you still want to support the channel, a couple of euros here or dollars or whatever your currency is, Filipino pesos or you know, Georgian lari, whatever you want, you're more than welcome to support me on Patreon a little bit if you feel like my knowledge share has helped you along your journey. But you're not obliged to do so, of course. Thank you very much for all of your support on the channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. More from me very soon. Much love.